Damn, son, where'd you find this?
Who taught you to hate the texture of your hair? Who taught you to hate the color of your skin to such extent that you bleach to get like the white man? Who taught you to hate the shape of your nose and the shape of your lips? Who taught you to hate yourself from the top of your head to the soles of your feet?
I love people as I meet them one by one. People are just wonderful as individuals. You see the whole...
My great aspiration, my greatest ambition is to be so good. Now, in that way, I'm tiresome, as I suppose, to live with, because I want to be a fantastic human being.
I am the greatest.
We're not disputing that, Cassius, but how does Sonny Liston feel about it?
He can't feel but one way, and let's take everything I say and like it. Because February the 25th, I'm going to take back my job. I'm the champ. He's no champ. He's a tramp.
When you see men fall, don't laugh. Learn. Learn. Because you're on your way up. And the things that tempt people to fall, you and I are not free from that temptation.
By examining his own attitude towards the possibilities of peace, towards the Soviet Union, towards the course of the Cold War.
Art muscle. It was a way of making me feel that they were a part of me.
You see it on the bridge. Wait, how they get it? If the government had to change the screw in the bridge, they had to shut it down. They got state troopers out there. They got lanes closed. They got their strange machines. How did they get up there?
What's going on, people? Blessings to everybody. Appreciate y'all for hanging out with us this evening. Y'all already know what day it is. Happy Hump Day, first and foremost. Shout outs to my writers, my content creators, my poets, my producers. You know what time I give my flowers out. I do my best to remember y'all. This is going to be an interesting one. I want to make sure that we're all locked in, that we got our eyes focused, we got the world tuned out. This particular moment right here is specifically for educational purposes, like any other time, but you don't want to cheapen the experience. I'm gonna bring Sydney up, and I'm gonna let her do her thing. Y'all make sure you show some love, like, share, subscribe, repost. Let the people know that we are on, and let's get into it. Sid, what's going on?
So my kids are in the background, so if you hear a lot of yelling, I apologize. They are very hyped up right now because they had sugar, so you know how that goes. Otherwise, what was I going to say? I was going to say something earlier. I saved something in my mind that I was going to tell you, but I forgot. Anyways, hello everyone. For those of you that don't know me, my name is Sydney, and I love to talk about scientific topics. I have my bachelor's degree in psychology, my master's degree in environmental education, and I've had around 10 years of experience of teaching various levels, usually younger kids, but I've gone up to high school level. And I yeah, I love teaching about topics that I'm interested in, which usually is scientific or historical arena. And today, the topic is in the scientific realm. This is important to talk about right now because a major scientific paper just, oh my gosh, I really hope you can't hear this as clearly as I can. Oh, I do remember the story I was going to tell now. Okay. But the topic we're going to talk about today has to do with a current that is off the East Coast of the United States. And it's important because they just released a couple papers talking about this process. And there's currently kind of infighting within the scientific community about this phenomenon and the effects we're going to see in the future. Oh my God, my children. So I thought it would be important because there really is no agreement within the expert community, and we also are seeing a what do you call it? Disenfranchisement of our experts. They're trying to discredit scientists and their expertise. We have certain individuals like RFK that are dismantling our scientific institutions. So I just really wanted to address this because if this does happen, it will affect a lot of people. And this is something that could potentially happen within all of our lifetimes. So I really wanted to talk about this. Additionally, the story that I wanted to bring up that I just thought was really funny. So I really love boba drinks, and we ordered some earlier today. And this is to make up for the last time we ordered boba. I didn't get my drink because they accidentally swapped it out for somebody else's food. And so I got the wrong order. And this was after waiting months to, I hadn't been having it for a while because I'm trying not to have as much sugar. And so I've been craving it and whatnot. So I've been waiting for a long time to get the boba and it didn't come. So this time we were like, all right, I'm going to get it again. And to make up for the last time that I didn't get to have it. And so this time we get it and I put it on the counter. And I had a couple sips from it, and I turn around and I knock the cup on the ground and it explodes. It goes everywhere. And I was just like, are you serious? This drink I've been waiting so long to get, messed up the first time, and then I dropped the second time. I'm like, oh my God, the universe is telling me that I'm not meant to have these drinks right now. So yeah, that happened today. But other than that, yeah, exactly. And I'm not gonna lie, it's kind of gross picking up the it's so good to drink, but they're not fun to pick up because they're all sticky, and so they would get stuck to the towel and then my fingers and stuff. And yeah, it was sad. And then yeah. All right. Moving on to the AMOC. So the AMOC stands for Atlantic Meridional Overturning Circulation, which in English means in the Atlantic Ocean, there is a circulation that goes from the tip of South America all the way up to the Arctic, which is why it's called meridional, because it crosses it goes along the meridian. That's the equator. And then these, I think those are the meridian lines. Yeah, I think it is because prime meridian is the center that way. Yeah. So those measure longitude, so that's why it's called meridional, because it goes north to south. So this circulation is really important for circulating the ocean. If you've ever had any experience with like fish tanks, you have to put like a pump or some sort of like bubbler to move around the water column, because from small to large, you want to have bodies of water have circulation, because if you don't have circulation, it allows the water to go stagnant, and eventually it can, depending on the conditions, it can like not have oxygen within the water, and that is not conducive to life. You need oxygen for life to exist, and places that don't have circulation, such as the Dead Sea, though they also have a high salt content, but they don't have circulation, so it doesn't allow fresh water to come in and whatnot. So in this part of the ocean, it's really important for maintaining the temperature of the water and the proper flow of the water and air currents. If you are familiar with hurricane seasons, one piece of evidence, one thing that you can see with the AMOC is the hurricanes will follow the track of the AMOC. So if you ever watch years of hurricane seasons, you'll see that they'll form off the coast of Africa, they'll travel along the coast of South America, and then they'll come into the Gulf, and then they'll at some point turn and go up along the coast. Like we've never seen a hurricane like go off this way, or like I'm just going to go across to South America. And that's because of the this conveyor belt that brings those storms in and brings them back out. It also, as I said, controls the currents within the water. So that's why, and that in turn affects the temperature of the water. Because as we know, cold sinks, warm rises. That's why you see the cold current going underneath this warm current, because basically what's happening is you have the cold water sinking, and as it's sinking, the warm water is like coming in to replace it, and then after a while the warm water starts to cool down, so it starts to sink, and that pushes up cold water from the deep, which is called upwelling. Upwelling is actually responsible for the massive kelp forests that are off the coast of California. California's oceans, particularly around Monterey Bay, have the biggest, have the most biodiversity, most amount of species of any place on the planet. Even, I think it's either second to or even above the Great Barrier Reef in terms of biodiversity. So we have thousands of species of fish, we have hundreds of species of marine mammals, we have thousands of species of birds. We also have migratory animals that come from all over the planet. So that is part of the benefit of these currents, is it brings this cold water up to the surface, which has more nutrients in it, because typically creatures like colder water, and so they like, the larger animals like this cold water because it comes rich with nutrients. So yeah, this whole cycle controls not only the temperature of the water itself, it's a small reason why we have a lot more warm water in this area, because it kind of brings the warm water in, not to mention it is shallower, and also at the equator. But this also affects the weather of the United States. As I said, one of the pieces of evidence, as you can see, it follows the track of hurricanes. And so this, in effect, leads the hurricanes away from the United States. It doesn't allow it to go up into this into Colorado or into up like past Florida and past Louisiana. Like the hurricanes are basically just gonna pass by, and this. So if you lose the AMOC, that is going to dramatically affect the climate. This has happened before. The AMOC has been around for a very long time, and there have been periods where the AMOC has shut down. And one of the things that scientists know from when AMOC shut down, I think the last one was like tens of thousands of years ago. I'll have to double check. But the problem with it is it brings ice age-like conditions to the East Coast. Because once you shut down the AMOC, that warm water is no longer going to be present, and there's going to be no circulation of the water column. And when that happens, the temperature kind of like stagnates, and it stays very like the cold water stays down there and the warm water's up there, and that's about it. You don't have any of that mixing. And so it affects the nutrient cycles. It affects as I said, the weather, because you do need variations to create weather, because it's the interaction of cold and warm that create weather. And so if you only have warm, it's going to affect the weather. I'm not a total expert in exactly the mechanisms that, like, how A causes B, how the AMOC collapsing would cause those weather phenomenon. But what I do know is that this conveyor belt is going to cause the eastern seaboard to get much, much colder, because you aren't going to have that warm air, warm water, warm weather being pushed in from Africa and South America. Because obviously these oceans are much, much warmer than the East Coast. They're on the equator. I believe the equator runs through the top of basically where you see that greenery. That's kind of where the equator is, especially towards like Central and South America. And on the picture. But so that area is warm. And so if that circulation were to disappear, the Eastern United States, Eastern United States wouldn't have access to those, to that warming effect. And so it would drop the temperature. It could be up to like 20 degrees on average, possibly more. Obviously the science isn't completely perfect because we don't have all of the data. We weren't there for most of these past events. And we're only going off data that you can pull from the earth, and that you can pull from models, and that you can pull from evidence from primitive cultures and how they were dressed and how they were interacting. Like there's a lot you can find out from ancient remains that can tell, like, it's kind of incredible what they can learn from ancient bodies. Like they can tell what they ate by the stuff they find in their teeth. They can find out if they were going through droughts or famines by their bones. Like there's some crazy stuff that you can find from people. But we have been able to kind of figure out generally what it was like when these collapses happened. And as I said, it caused a massive cooling, and it was in the span of hundreds of years. This isn't over the span of thousands of years. This would happen in, like, we would feel the effects in our lifetime. We probably wouldn't see the worst of it, but we would definitely feel the impacts. Currently, there's a debate within the scientific community around if or when it's going to happen. The most I would say, extreme predictions, which to me are the most accurate. They're saying that we're probably going to see a collapse within the next 10 to 20 years. The general opinion is by 2050, there's a 75% chance of collapse. But there was a paper published in February that said that there was a very low likelihood of it collapsing. But they did write that paper in response to a very pointed paper that said it's no longer a low possibility event. It's now a medium to high probability event of it happening. And I know there's a lot of influential rich people that don't like people thinking that climate change is affecting us. So I personally think that these papers had been written to just be like, no, the world's not ending. What are you talking about? No. So I don't really trust that other paper, but I also don't want to fearmonger. We don't know for sure. Like, Earth can do some crazy things, so maybe we'll get lucky or something like that. But I do think that this is a very possible event, especially because we've already been seeing shifts in the circulation itself, and we've had a few events where it briefly stopped. So personally, I think that we're probably going to see something, but currently the scientists say there's a 75% chance of us seeing it in our lifetime. So, yeah. So I'll leave it there for now.
I was watching well, I ain't gonna say I was watching, I was reading the article that you had sent me, and there was a part in there where it said they're pretty much ignoring it. They're not really taking it serious. Shocker. I'm very shocked. Do y'all really understand how much we need the planet? I know we built buildings, and we've done all of this magnificent stuff, but do you really understand that if the earth collapses beneath us, we are screwed? Think about your food. Think about the air. Think about the weather alone. It's already getting hotter. You got all these volcanoes erupting. A lot of volcanoes that were supposed to be inactive. There was a video, I didn't even get a chance to watch it yet. They're talking about Yellowstone. I don't have all the facts. I'm just telling you from what I'm gathering, what we're doing is not making things any better. Now, it doesn't really seem all that important. Why? Because you just going about your day. I say this all the time. We go on about our schedule. We get up, brush our teeth, go to work, come home, get stuck in traffic. We just do our daily thing. But you're not understanding, but you're burning gas. You're blowing smoke into the air constantly. You got the government, the buildings and the infrastructures that's producing the tobacco and the plastic and these areas that are supposed to be bettering and bringing us into a better future, they're solely responsible for the conditions that the planet is enduring and suffering from. Wasn't it just last week we were talking about how much trash and plastic is being dumped into the ocean? They have a whole little term for a piece of it. I can't remember what you called it, but it's like, what do you think you're going to throw all your trash at? You're just throwing things wherever you want to throw it at. And you think the planet is just supposed to just consume it and nothing is going to come from it? It don't really make no sense.
I forgot to mention last week that some of the plastic even just comes as dust off of the stuff that we use. Like every time you use a plastic cutting board, every time you like wash your clothes, those all like you produce microplastics that way too. That's insane. I do also want to touch on that question. I don't think that we're manipulating the currents that way. First of all, HAARP is up in the ionosphere, which doesn't have very much of an effect on our climate, given its location. It's more so at the edge of space, and it's more so a barrier from energy particles rather than being the blanket part of our environment. Of our atmosphere. The areas that are mostly affected by climate change are the lower and middle layers of the atmosphere that are able to hold in the heavier elements, like carbon and methane, stuff like that. And also the HAARP technologies are limited to very small areas, and the energy that they're using is not that unnatural. Some volcanoes, the earth itself can produce sounds at that frequency, and not to mention that, like, just to give you an idea of like how insignificant our existence is, our impact is. A hurricane produces the amount of energy that I think it's like 1 million nuclear weapons. Like if we shot a nuclear weapon into a hurricane, it would not do anything to that hurricane. The hurricane wouldn't feel a thing. There it is. An average hurricane releases the equivalent to 10,000 nuclear bombs over its life cycle. So we as a human, of course, we have the capacity to change the planet over long periods of time, because cumulative impacts are clearly much easier. Most of our problems are cumulative problems. The accumulation of chemicals, the accumulation of plastic, the accumulation of carbon gases. So we have done this to ourselves, and it's unfortunately not the government doing this. I wish that was the case, because then there might be a lever to pull, just be like, we'll just make them stop. But unfortunately, it is our actions, or at least the companies promoting our products and our inability to have other options that are to blame for this whole issue. But the other thing I forgot to mention with the AMOC is not only does it affect the temperatures, but it also is affected by salinity. As I kind of touched on when I mentioned the Dead Sea, the cold water is going to have more salt, because salt sinks to the bottom over time. And so the deeper water is saltier than the current. I am going to just read their description because I feel like they do a better job at explaining it than I'm doing. So the AMOC is composed of a northward flow of warm, more saline water in the Atlantic's upper layers and a southward return flow of cold, less salty deep water. Warm water from the south is more saline because the high evaporation rate in the tropical zone. The warm saline water forms an upper layer of the ocean called a thermocline, which is, it's really cool. Sometimes you can actually see it, but it's like a split between the cold and the warm. And this layer, when the layer cools down, the density of the salt water increases, making it sink into the deep. This is what causes the overturning. As it sinks, then the warm air rises to replace it. So it affects it is affected by the salinity as well, which is another reason, or which is another way we contribute to this problem, and why climate change is such a crucial aspect, not just because of the warming oceans, but also as the climate changes, we are unlocking more water and adding it to our environment. And what I mean by that is when it's really cold, when the general temperatures across the planet are colder than normal, you are going to have more snow, more ice, more buildup on mountains, more glaciers, because basically glaciers are when snow accumulates so much at the top of mountains that it turns into a river of ice and snow moving down the mountain. And so colder environments allow more water to be locked up in the ice. And so when you have rainstorms, you don't have as much water. Think of it in the same way as different environments on Earth. Like if you go to a rainforest where there's a lot of moisture in the air, you're going to have big, thick, giant raindrops, and you're going to have a lot of it. Like when they have rainstorms, they have downpours, versus if you go to somewhere like California where we don't have very much rain very often, we don't have a lot of water in our atmosphere. When you do have rain, it's either going to be in really light sprinkles with not much water available, or it's going to be like a super downpour in a very short period of time. And what we are doing is we're making the world more like the tropics instead of San Jose, California. And so our rainstorms are becoming more and more full of water because more and more of that water is being released from the ice, and fewer or less of this water is turning back into snow and ice. And so over time, we're allowing more and more fresh water to rush out into the ocean, which not only affects the temperature, but it also affects the salinity. Because if you have a rush of fresh water come into salt water suddenly, especially in large quantities, that will disrupt the circulation. Because as I said, the saline water sinks. So if you suddenly bring a bunch of cold fresh water or warmer fresh water rushing in, when normally it's going to be salty warm water that's there, it's going to completely mess up the cycle. So we can expect, as the climate changes, the climate warms, as more water rushes out to the oceans as a result of these worsening storms and the melting of water, that's going to cause this circulation to become unstable and possibly collapse.
In layman's terms, You ain't got nobody to blame but yourself. You don't care. It's not really a concern. It's not on your itinerary. I think the most the most consideration we have about the water is when we go sit by it, or when we go take a walk by it, or when we're complaining about it not being clean enough, or we're paying our water bill. Nobody is. Are we just? I think I'll be saying this so much, but it's like, damn, do we just care about anything other than ourselves? It's like you care about yourself, but you don't care about yourself. Because if you really cared about yourself, then you would care about this. But you don't really care about this, so how can you actually technically care about yourself? Because this affects you just as much as anything else. So where's the logic?
I think part of it is people just don't know what to do. Because, I mean, even me, obviously I wouldn't say I'm an expert, but I'm very, very, very well versed in the science. And I still struggle with, like, I see the problem, but what am I supposed to do? Like, this problem is so huge. And also the fact that it's not so much a, like, oh, we're pumping out pollution, so we need to just turn off the spigot and change what we're doing. I'm like, this is so much deeper than that, because so many lifelines are tied to this release of substance. For example, I should even look up the numbers. Air conditioners are one of the biggest users of electricity in terms of normal people use. I won't even get into the corporations' use of energy, but for humans, our cars, our air conditioners, our appliances like fridges, even though those have kind of gotten better, but in poorer countries, oven stoves, they're much more dirty than ours are. Let me see. Air conditioning causes around 3% of greenhouse gas emissions. And there are about 2 billion air conditioning units in the world. And I don't know what the percentage is, but I know a vast majority of these people rely on these for survival, particularly like the Midwest, the South, and basically anywhere in the like Middle East, India, the tropical belt. Like a great majority of people need these air conditioners to survive. And as I said, they're emitters of energy, of electricity, and of this carbon, of methane. As I said, our cars are, yet so many American cities are built to be for cars and not for walkers. And so we are kind of incentivized to use cars. So this isn't a one size fits all kind of problem. Like, this is a multi-pronged problem. This is how we build houses. This is how we operate our transportation systems. This is how we grow our food, how we make our clothes, how we even go to school, and everything we do. The main reason why this is such a problem is we don't have any cohesion at all. There's no, like, there are groups, there are pockets of people that like get together and they're like, oh, we're going to plant trees, or oh, we're going to teach people to garden. Oh, like, there are small movements, which is amazing and it's beneficial, but we don't have 8 billion people saying, oh, we need to do something about this. We need to change. We're going to stop driving our cars. We're going to start working on these solutions. Like, we don't have that. Most people don't even agree. There's a subset of the population that, because of their religion, they think this is a good thing because they believe that this is the coming of whatever God or savior they believe in. Some people it's Jesus. There are religions that believe in other things. But there are groups of people that think that this is a good thing because it means that heaven is coming for them, or their paradise, or whatever it's called. And it's also, we have people that don't pay attention at all and don't even know that this is happening. There's a lot of people that don't think it's that going to be that bad. Like, the same mentality that you see, this is the same mentality that you'd see with any type of disaster. Like, you have some people that are like, wait, I have tornadoes here? I didn't know that. You have some people that are like, oh yeah, I have like 6 months of food stored. I have this electricity figured out. Like, I even have a cow in my basement. Like, they have it all figured out. And then you have everyone in between, the ones that do some basic, like, oh yeah, I made sure our windows are windproof, or some people that like, oh yeah, I have a shelter in my bathroom set up, or something like that. Like, you have your variety of people, and not many people are at the end of the spectrum where they're exceptionally well versed. Like, I think most people fall in the middle where they're concerned, they know about it, but they don't really know what to do with the information. We're also a culture built to be distracted, where we're on to the next thing. Like, case in point with we went from the Stanley Cup to the other thing to the Labubu to something else, and like, we've had all sorts of like different trends. We jump from thing to thing. Like, every month it's a new thing, new game, new whatever. And that distractibility also does not help when you're trying to solve a... Yeah, you have something to say too? It's a generational problem. Like, we have to work together as families, as communities, as like, understanding that this is going to affect us and our children and our grandchildren and their children. So we need to start addressing this together, because we are on track to destroy more of the planet than the meteor that killed the dinosaurs. Like, we're doing more damage than a 3 or 6 mile wide asteroid to the planet. We have, some animals have had a 90% or more decrease in population just in the last 75 years. I keep forgetting I've existed for longer. So we are going to, I mean, sadly, just in my opinion, with my background in psychology, this was actually my capstone for my master's degree, where I investigated why don't people care about climate change. And I found through my research, I surveyed over 500 people, I think. Most people believed in climate change. Most people knew that it was a problem, but most people just didn't think that there was anything they could do. And so I think that's one thing that climate scientists need to work on, is instead of like just throwing scientific facts at everyone, they should start offering ideas, like solutions. And beyond the like, talk to your representative, make sure you vote, make sure you switch out your car, whatever. Like, there, yeah, it's tough because there isn't much advice I can pass on, because it is such a huge problem. Like, even things that would seem to be solutions are counterintuitively a problem. Like, for example, electric cars. We all think, like, of course they're great for the planet, but bicycles are better because making the electric cars produces greenhouse gases. So even they can be problematic. Not to mention the batteries, the lithium is terrible for the environment. But yeah, this is the perfect example of how we don't, like, this is so much bigger than we are, and we really need to take this more seriously, because to mess with something so much larger than us and so impactful on our life is pretty stupid. It's crazy to me that we as a society it hasn't clicked yet for most people. I mean, I guess maybe the right information isn't out there yet, but it just, like, I could understand how people could see this and be like, what? We couldn't possibly be responsible for this. Like, we couldn't do this. But I don't know. I never know what to say about this, because I myself have kind of a doomer mindset about this stuff. Like, I personally think we've kind of already screwed ourselves over, and we're just going to be watching everything happen, especially because the Earth has so many different wild cards that we don't even know she could do. Like, there was a time in history where over the span of only a couple hundred years, the Earth's temperature dropped like 6 degrees. And we've already seen what 1.5 to 2 degrees is doing to our planet. So imagine what a change of 6 degrees would do overnight. But yeah, I never know what to say, because I want so badly to just, like, shake people and be like, wake up and do something. Like, oh my God, is it really that hard? But obviously, just, like, yelling at people doesn't do anything. This is why I'm glad I have the podcast, because then I can at least feel like I'm doing something instead of just, like, angrily writing at my desk, hoping one day someone will read a poem. Or at least, and hoping that they actually understand what I'm writing in the poem, since I like to use metaphor so much. So it is nice to get a platform to yell constructively at someone in a conversation.
This is what's going to happen. A storm is going to hit. Buildings are going to collapse. Homes are going to be destroyed. And then people are going to be like, wait, this was happening all along? I didn't know that. Let me stop watching TikTok videos for 5 minutes. I just lost everything. Now I need to pay attention, because now I have to figure out how I'm going to rebuild my life or recoup from what I have already lost. That's exactly what's going to happen. And the beauty about this, because whether or not one person watches or 3 people watch, somebody knows what's going on. The information is out there. So what you do with it is completely up to you. But you know how hard-headed we are. It's like telling someone not to dine on their favorite snacks and desserts. Leave it alone. Start eating vegetables, and yeah, you won't do it until the doctor tells you ain't got no choice.
I forgot who said this, but there is a quote, like, most people only start eating vegetables when they find out they have cancer.
Yeah.
It does give me hope, though, in the sense that, ironically, in the same way that, like, every little action makes a difference in the way that, like, all of our actions collectively, all of our little actions collectively caused climate change, it also works the opposite direction. So as people start making these changes and demanding these changes in society, eventually it will start to explode outward and be more, there will be more people that jump on to the changes that are needed. So that does give me hope that we'll eventually get there. But I do think you're right. As my focus was disaster management, I found that most people's perspectives were changed once they personally were affected. Sometimes it was if somebody close to them was affected, but most of the time people changed their mind when the storm hit their house, the flood hit their house, the heat wave affected their neighborhood. So I really think that the majority of the planet are going to have to experience these effects, which is why I think if you look at the statistics, 90 to 99% of people in South America and Central America and Mexico believe that climate change exists and is impacting them today. 90% of people in Africa who have heard of it or who were informed of it believe that climate change exists and have noticed things impacting them. Whereas, in China, 80% of the people they surveyed believed in climate change. India was around 85%. I think Europe was around like 83%. United States was at like 60%. We were one of the only countries that, I think Russia was the other one that didn't believe in climate change. But we are one of the few countries, industrialized countries, that do not believe in climate change. But I think part of the reason is we're so removed from the environment here. In Europe, people are very nature centric. They really love hiking. They love biking. They have a lot of parks. They have a lot of natural settings that are preserved for the public to enjoy. They have a lot of beautiful mountain ranges and stuff. Like, we do have a lot of beautiful land out here, but most of it has either been privatized or is kind of dangerous for people to go in now. Like, most of the safer locations have kind of been eaten away. I mean, there still are places, but we also are a very inside-oriented culture where most of our socialization is online, behind a desk, and we as a country do not spend very much time collectively outside. So I think that probably contributes to this mindset where we are just so like disconnected from everything around us that we don't recognize the things that are affecting us. Because most people, like, oh, it's raining, I'm not going to go out today. Like, in the past, like 1950s and before, it doesn't matter if you didn't want to go outside. Like, okay, then you get to starve today. You don't get the milk from your cow. You don't get the chicken eggs. Like, you don't get to get the food that you're going to hunt. So we are not confronted with our environment as much as people around the world are today, and as we were in the past. So I think that also contributes to why we are kind of oblivious to what's happening. So I think we will need that big moment to show the world, like, come on, do you not see this? It's here. And I think we're getting to that point. I hear more and more people, especially in red areas, now saying like, oh yeah, I believe it. And the kind of anti-religiousness is falling away to a degree. It's still pretty pervasive in our political spheres, but I've noticed the population has changed quite dramatically, especially since Helene, the wildfires in Lahaina, the wildfires in the Palisades, all of the there's been a couple storm outbreaks. There's been a number of events that have caught people's attention. So I've also noticed it's more widespread that like news medias and especially like small town ones are more open to discussing those types of topics on air. It's not as taboo as it used to be. So yeah, I think we're getting there, but we'll see. Hopefully we don't switch our attention.
That's all we do is switch our attention. It's one trend at a time. One day it's in, one day it's not. One day you care about it, one day you don't. Right now, everybody talking about Cardi B. So tomorrow is going to be about the Epstein case. By the way, cheap plug. Check out the video I just uploaded. The victims, they said we're not waiting no more. Y'all don't want to do right by us. We're going to make our own list. Keep an eye out for that. But nah, I'm optimistic like you are, but it is what it is. I can only do but so much, just like you.
That's why I write poetry, because it helps me not go crazy and have an outlet for these things. It's so frustrating, especially when people are so blind to it. But I have noticed that if you have a open conversation with people, like if you are like receptive to their perspective and like acknowledge, they're more willing to kind of listen to you. But it's the religious fanatics are pretty hard to deal with. I still remember I was like 15, 16. I was giving a tour. I give a tour of the outside and inside of the facility. We're talking about the whale because they have a gray whale skeleton or blue whale skeleton out, or they have both. We're talking about the blue whale because it has the vestigial hip bones where when whales used to be mammals with legs, they had hip bones, but whales obviously don't need them, but they still have the remnants of those hip bones that you can see near their pelvis. And I was talking about them, and the person looks at me and they're like, "Oh, that's not possible because the Earth is only 6,000 years old." And I was like, "Right." And all I could say to them was like, "Oh, right. Sorry, I forgot." That was such a surprise to me because I was like, "Oh, right. I forgot that people like this still exist."
Yeah. My final thoughts. Keep an open mind. You know, I was having a conversation earlier, and now that it's coming back to me, we get so distracted by the internet and specific things that catch our attention, but the world can be burning down around us and we don't see it. Even if you take 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 20 minutes out of your day, do something out of the ordinary that you don't normally do. Read up on some things that you typically wouldn't. Show a little more interest in things that you take for granted. Broaden your perspective.
My favorite thing to do is when I see something that I'm like, "Oh, I don't know what that is," or "I've never heard of that before," I'll look it up so I can at least know what it is. and then if it interests me, then I'll look into it more. It starts small. It's really a habit. I've definitely made it my habit to investigate anything that is interesting to me, and letting me kind of follow the trail to learn about whatever I'm interested, like the types of things that I'm interested in within the realm of that topic. And I promise it sounds like I don't have to do all this reading. That sounds boring, but you can learn a lot about the world. And the more you learn about the world, the more you can connect to other things. And really, I think that's the way to develop your intelligence, is to be able to get to the point where you can start making connections to things that nobody would have ever thought were related. And I think those are the ways that you solve problems the best, is by being able to put two things that nobody would have ever considered could be put together, and putting them together and coming up with some new type of solution. So that's why I always love like cross-disciplinary study, and just, as I said, paying attention, or as you said, paying attention to the world around you, and realizing that as much as we want to be, we're not one person. We aren't the star of the show. We aren't we aren't the main character. We are one in a system of many, and we are part of a larger effect. We ourselves have an impact on the things around us, and so we really should be finding ways to minimize our impact, or at least when we make an impact, to make sure that that impact is for the betterment of those around us and not to the detriment.
Well said.
Hi. Can you say Amok? Amok.
Hey, shout out to the Cameo. Appreciate you for pulling up and blessing us with your presence. Sydney, salutes to you as always. Your knowledge will forever be appreciated here on this side of the internet. Hopefully and prayerfully somebody gets something out of this discussion. Shout outs to Conspiracy Queen. Shout outs to Chef. Shout outs to Adrian. Shout outs to SM. Shout out to Arcana. Shout out to everybody in the building.
And I will say, comments like what Arcana said, where it made me wake up and put me on game. That's always the stuff that nerds, and particularly like activists like us, love to hear. When we hear that we have made an impact in your thinking, I always appreciate stuff like that. So I'm glad you guys enjoyed the show today. I enjoyed nerding out, and I'm glad I got to talk about this.
Well, look, man, we about to get up out of here. Y'all already know the routine. I'll be back tomorrow, Lord willing. I'll be here in the lab. You know how to reach me if you need to. I'm gonna send that link out as soon as we get off of here. Like, share, subscribe to the channel. If you're not, tell somebody who ain't told somebody. We gone. Y'all enjoy the rest of your night. Oh, do me a solid before you go.
What's the goddamn button?
Have a good night, guys.
By examining his own attitude towards the possibilities of peace, towards the Soviet Union, towards the course of the Cold War.
Art muscle. It was a way of making me feel that they were a part of me.
You see it on the bridge. Wait, I didn't get it. If the government had to change the screw in the bridge, they had to shut it down. They got state troopers out there. They got